the relentless grip of the Pacific, miles away from civilization, the small research vessel Endeavour battled a furious storm. Among its crew was David Reynolds, a marine biologist with a deep-seated phobia of snakes. As fate would have it, the ship succumbed to the wrath of the sea, leaving David as the sole survivor, washed ashore on an uncharted island. As David regained consciousness on the sandy beach, the trauma of the shipwreck was quickly overshadowed by a horrifying realization. The island was infested with snakes of all sizes, slithering across the sand, hanging from the trees, their hisses a constant, terrifying symphony. Frozen with fear, David struggled to muster the courage to move. He knew he had to find shelter, food, and fresh water if he was to survive. Pushing his phobia to the back of his mind, he ventured further into the island. The dense jungle was a labyrinth of fear. Every rustle of the leaves, every movement in the corner of his eye was a snake, real or imagined. He came across a small stream and, with great caution, managed to collect some water. Food, however, was harder to come by, with the ever-present threat of venomous snakes at every turn. Nights were the worst. The darkness amplified every sound, turning each moment into a nightmare. David barely slept, his mind plagued by thoughts of snakes slithering over him as he lay vulnerable on the ground. Days turned into weeks. David managed to fashion a rudimentary shelter and a spear for protection. He learned to identify which snakes were venomous and which were not, a knowledge born of necessity, but marred by constant fear. One day, while exploring the island in search of food, David stumbled upon a cave. Inside, he found drawings on the walls, primitive but unmistakable depictions of snakes and human figures. It seemed the island had once been inhabited. The snakes worshipped as deities. Driven by curiosity and the hope of finding something useful, David ventured deeper into the cave. That's when he heard it, a low, ominous hissing, different from any snake he had encountered. In the dim light of his makeshift torch, he saw it, a snake, larger than any he had ever seen, its eyes reflecting a sinister intelligence. David froze, the creature's gaze holding him captive. It was then that he realized the island was not just infested with snakes, it was ruled by them, and this colossal serpent was their queen. In a moment of sheer terror, David turned and ran, the giant snake in pursuit. He barely made it out of the cave, the snake stopping at the entrance, as if bound to its dark sanctuary. From that day on, David lived in a heightened state of terror, knowing that the queen snake lurked in the shadows, a constant threat. He scavenged the island for anything that could help him signal for rescue, his hope dwindling with each passing day. Then, one night, as he lay in his shelter, the island trembled. The ground shook, trees swayed violently, and the snakes, as if responding to some unseen signal, began to slither in unison towards the cave. David, realizing this might be his only chance, followed them at a distance. As he approached the cave, the ground opened up, swallowing the snakes, including the colossal queen. The island was collapsing, a hidden volcanic activity awakened. In a desperate bid for survival, David rushed to the beach just as a rescue helicopter, drawn by the volcanic eruption, appeared on the horizon. He was saved, but the terror of the island, the serpents, and their colossal queen would haunt him for the rest of his life. The story ends with David's rescue, a man forever changed by his ordeal, a survivor of an island that disappeared beneath the waves, taking its serpentine horrors with it.